Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to give you some hints and tricks on fine lines. I am doing a talk through video for this one just because I feel like I can get my point across better, so I'm sorry if the audio is a bit off. I promise next few videos it will be back to normal voiceover mode. First things first, the most important thing for fine lines, I think anyway, is getting a good brush. Now whether that is a short brush or a long brush, that is personal preference, but you do want to get it as fine as possible. The brush that I like for my line work is a Bowen number 1 brush. It is always linked in the description box. You just want it to be super fine because you can only make your fine lines as fine as your brush will let you. So you can either buy a fine brush like this one here, or you can buy a thicker brush and trim it down to the size that you like. Next, I do prefer to do my fine lines with a gel paint rather than a gel polish. There are many reasons, and I'll probably do a video on that in the future, but for this video I'm going to show you how to do fine lines, tips and tricks on how to do fine lines with just gel polish. Anyway, the first step for your fine lines is obviously having your base completely finished, whether that's just one colour or ombre or whatever you're going on in the background. Get that completely finished and then you're ready to get on to the hints and tricks. Okay, so I have completely cured my base colour, and now I'm going to take my Isoprod black alcohol and a lint-free wipe, and I'm just going to take away the tacky layer. Alternatively, if you don't like to take the tacky layer off, I know sometimes for some people it can affect the longevity of the polish, you can complete the colour step, add your top coat, take away the sticky layer of the top coat and just buff it so that you have no tacky layer and kind of a matte surface to work on. You don't want a shiny surface because the gel polish won't stick to it, and you also don't want the tacky layer because if you have the tacky layer on there, the gel polish lines that you draw on have more tendency to kind of bleed into the tacky layer, and you're not going to have as crisp lines. If your gel polish is a little bit shiny after you've removed the tacky layer, you can also just take a buffing block and roughen that up a little bit. I don't normally do this, but it's just a step. If you want to, you can do that. And then of course, again, wipe it with your alcohol. So next, you need to choose your colour. I'm just going to use black for my line work because it's contrasting and you'll be able to see it well, but you want to pick a colour that is a pigmented polish, and you want to make sure that you shake that polish really well so that all the pigment is mixed in and you're not just rubbing on some unmixed pigment or anything like that. You really want to use a polish that is a one coater or near enough. So I'm just going to put some of this gel polish onto my table, which is my palette. Right, so I have loaded my brush up with some gel polish. So I'm just going to do some general lines, and for that I'm using the entire length of my brush. This is just the way that I do fine lines. You may find a better way or a way that works better for you. So I just like to use kind of the whole length of my brush, and you want to work quickly because the slower you go, you'll see every little shake of your hand. Now because I've taken the tacky layer off, you don't need to flash cure this as quickly as if the tacky layer was still on there, because it doesn't have as much room to move, but I do still recommend that you flash cure fairly regularly. You'll have to excuse these terrible lines. My hand is shaking a lot. It's late at night. I mustn't have had enough sugar. Okay, so I've got some lines going that way. They're not perfect, but they are quite good. I'm happy with them. And I'm just going to flash cure those for about 10 seconds. So those lines are flash cured, and now I don't need to worry about them moving or anything like that. So I'm going to go in and do some more lines. Again, same kind of thickness. If your polish isn't super pigmented, then you may need to do more than one coat. For me, I like to do the whole design and then go back and do any second coats where needed. Like I've said before, it's very hard to paint on camera because you can't get in at the angles that you like. But you will also find that sometimes it's easier to do lines painting away from you, sometimes it's easier to come towards you. Mainly all practice, and it's 100 times easier off camera. I feel like I'm going to say that in every video that I do. People are just going to think I'm crap at nail art. I promise I'm not. Well, I might be. I also apologise if this video is ridiculously long. I'll try and speed up bits where I can. Right, so we've got those done. They're just regular thickness lines that I've done with full pressure on my brush. And I'm going to flash cure that again for another 10 seconds or so. Now to do finer lines, this step is much easier with a gel paint because it is thicker, so you get more control. But to do finer lines, I like to use the tip of my brush. Where am I going to do these? Which angle is easiest? So, for the tip, you just want to make sure you have enough polish on the tip of your brush, but again, not too much that you're just going to end up with giant lines. But using just the tip, you can get finer lines. And again, this is easier with a gel paint because one, it is more pigmented, and it's just a million times better. I don't know if you can tell the difference in the thickness of these lines. I really hope that you can, but you definitely want to make sure you don't get that bead of polish on your brush, even if that means you have to dip in a million times. You don't want too much polish on your brush, especially when you're doing these super fine lines. You will find that for these super fine lines, they are not quite as pigmented as the other lines because there's not as much polish on them. But you can either make that part of the look that you're going for, or you can go over them another time if you'd prefer to do that. I kind of just let it be. Like I said, normally I would do lines like this with gel paint only, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So I'm going to flash cure those before they move too much. And now I'm just going to do some more fine lines going the opposite direction and flash curing as I go. You can't be afraid of the fine lines, just go for it. So once the design's complete, I'm just going to do a full 30-second cure and then we're on to the next step. Now I like to go in and go over any areas that aren't as opaque as they need to be. It's not everywhere, but there are definitely some places that need a second coat. You can see whenever I get too much polish on my brush like this, I actually go off and I just wipe that off so that it is more evenly distributed around my brush. I do not want a bead like this because it will just make me a giant line. The beauty of fine line work is that yes, ideally you would have it 100% perfect, symmetrical, everything, but you have to remember that it is, hand painted. There's no stencil. It's not going to be exactly perfect. Oh, I mean, it could be eventually if you practice enough, but there are going to be times that it's not exactly what you wanted, you have to take a step back from the nail and look at it from a distance and realise, actually that looks pretty cool. I can see plenty of flaws in this nail, but as an overall look, you can see that it looks pretty cool, and I think most clients would be happy with this kind of thing. And if you were looking for a more perfect look, maybe you should try out stamping. It might give you more perfect lines. But personally, I kind of like the imperfections of hand-painted nail art. But I may be alone in that, I don't know. Alright, so I'm happy with the opacity there. I think I'm going to leave the thinner lines as a little bit less pigmented, but yeah, so I'm going to fully cure that again. So now that design is fully cured and you can completely stop there, just add your top coat and you're done. But if you want to perfect any areas that you may think are obviously incorrect, you're going to take your base colour and a fine brush. You can use the same one, cleaned off obviously, or a new one like I have here. I think I have two of these brushes. No, I actually have a bunch, but I'm using two of them. And you can go in and perfect anything that is incorrect, really. You may have to do a couple of coats to correct things, because obviously I'm going over black with a lighter polish. It's quite pigmented, but it doesn't quite cover black. I don't even know what to perfect. I'm just going to do a little bit because I'm not really that bothered by the mistakes in this one. So I'll cure that and then do a second coat. And again, fully cure. Now again, this is a completely unnecessary step, but I am going to go in with my black brush again and some more black gel polish and correct my corrections where I overcorrected. Like I said, completely unnecessary, but I'll show you it anyway. I think that will be all. So I'm going to go ahead and fully cure that. All that line work is completely cured, so now it's just time for top coat. You could do 2 layers of top coat if you don't like to feel the texture of the line work, because obviously the line work is raised. But I don't mind feeling the texture. But absolutely, if it bothers you, go ahead and do 2 coats of top coat and you are finished. Key things I think to remember are just using the different parts of the brush for different thicknesses of lines. Use a full pressure to make a slightly thicker line, or use just the tip to do a finer line. And then I'm going to fully cure that top coat, and that is the finished nail. So that is the finished nail. Again, this wasn't really a tutorial of the design so much as just trying to tell you some hints and tricks of what I do when I'm doing fine line work. Like I said, this isn't perfect by any means. There are definitely imperfections in the nail, and there are probably some tips that I forgot to mention. So look out for a follow-up fine lines video, and I will most likely do one using gel paint and possibly even acrylic paint. And I also have a few videos planned on different application techniques for chrome, which one works best, because I myself do not know and I would like to find out, so I thought I might as well film that. And I am also going to do an updated marble tutorial, because I do things slightly differently to the previous marble video that I have up. I mean, it's still pretty similar, but there are a few little things that I have changed. Anyway, really sorry this video is probably super long, but thank you so much for watching, and feel free to comment and share and like and whatever you like to do, and of course subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.